Hi everyone, it's Eliana and I have a card to share with you today. This card is sponsored by Concord and 9th. They sent me the Flourish stamp set and they also sent me the Crazy Cat stamp set, You Crazy Cat stamp set, but I'm not going to be using that one today. I'm going to use the Flourish stamp set and the Love You Mean It stamp set. I'm taking my black piece of cardstock and I'm just prepping it with my embossing tool. And it basically puts a layer of some kind of powder down so that the oils from my finger don't cause the embossing powder to stick where I don't want it. Um, and it's more noticeable with the black um, just because I'm going to be using clear embossing powder. And I'm just placing my stamps all onto my cardstock just so that I can get the placement of the branch where I want it. It is a big stamp, um, but it all lays together so easily and you can change the combination of where you put your flowers. Now I want to make sure that I have room for my sentiment. I'm just going to tuck it right there, so I'm just making sure that there's plenty of room and I can move it up just a little bit so that that bottom flower is not so close to the edge. And now I'm going to make sure that my flower is, or my branch is exactly where it needs to be. So I'm just checking it with the transparency. And then I'll just close the lid of the MISTI to pick up my stamp. I'm going to start with some white pigment ink, and this is the Yeti ink from Lawn Fawn. And the reason why I'm starting with the white is because I'm going to be using pigment ink and I want to create a base for the pigment ink to lay on so that you can see the colors a little bit better. You do want to be careful when you push down your stamp onto the cardstock that you don't want to put too much pressure on it, because then you get the ink kind of comes out from the side. And so you just want to simply just close the lid. I did push a little too hard, and then you can see kind of a little bit of a white outline on one of the leaves. You could really just do a um, black and white card if you really wanted to, but I wanted to add some color to it. So now I'm using the Celery from Avery Elle, and I tried a couple of times, and then I just think that because of the white, it really mutes the green and you don't really see it as much. And so I end up changing to the Jungle pigment ink. And I do this a couple of times just to make sure that I get good coverage. And with the MISTI, you can just do it over and over again until you get it as much pigment ink as you want. I'm going to be using my absorber cloth to clean off. This is the chamois from Lawn Fawn. Sorry, I forgot about that. And I'm just using it to clean off the lid. Now I'm going to be stamping the little flower that goes in the middle next. And I'm just going to line it up. You can turn the little flower whichever direction you want. It'll still lay in there. So if you wanted to do a landscape card, you could turn it so that the flower is up. I'm going to stamp it again with my white. And then clean off my stamp again. And you do want to clean the white off of it before you put your colored pigment ink on there. I'm going to be using Orchid from Avery Elle again. I am going to stamp this twice so that I can get the nice light pink color. I'm not sure if it's pink or if it's a light purple. Um, it just goes well with the colors I chose, and it goes well with the black. Now I'm putting the next layer on, and I sped this up to go 2 times as fast, so you know I'm going pretty slow putting those stamps on. Now I'm going to be stamping this one in Sugar Plum, and then I'll be putting the next layer on, and this color will be Vino. And I'm making sure that my card is tucked into the corner each time. And I'm stamping this one twice. And I didn't really have the sugar plum in there quite right, so I just took a little stick and I just cleaned up the part that was bothering me. And now I'm going to be adding the other parts of the stamp set. These are the little buds, and there's 2 kinds of buds, and you can change the location of these 2 that are on the screen right now. So either one will fit on either spot. Now I'm placing the flower, and I didn't remember which way the flower is supposed to go, so I'm actually referencing their website to see, and it's the bigger flower that goes closest to the stem. And then the other flower goes up at the top, and those are interchangeable. And I'm stamping it in white again. And now I'm going to be using Mimosa and Aquamarine for my other stamps, and I am going to just ink up my stamp sets all at the same time, just to save some time. And the stamps are kind of far apart, so it's easy to do, even with the bigger stamps instead of the mini cubes. And I'm going back and I'm doing a second coat of the ink. And now I've pulled out my small acrylic block, and I'm going to be using the sapphire ink to do the centers of the flowers. I did have 2 cups of coffee and my hands were shaking just a little bit when I was stamping this. I did get my head in the way, so I did trim most of that out, just because you have to get right on top. And I used the blue because I didn't have a darker green for the veins of the flowers, but I thought it would look okay since I used it for the center of the blue flowers. And I'm really liking how this is turning out because it kind of looks like a chalkboard painted flower. So I'm using the same Vino for the little buds. And once that's done, I go back and add the little centers to the blue flowers using the mimosa again. And now I'm going to take my clear embossing powder and I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss it. I could have done my sentiment before I did this, but I was worried that it was going to dry before I was done and then the embossing powder wouldn't stick to it. So I went ahead and did the clear embossing on it, and now I'm going back and I'm adding my sentiment, and this sentiment from the Love You Mean It stamp set is just perfect because it tucks right into that little part of the card right there. And I'm just making sure that it's centered, and the lid of my MISTI is just a wreck. It's just so dirty right now. I'm going to clean it off, and I'm going to use the same orchid color so that it matches the flower. So I have a repetition of the colors within the card. I have the Vino for the centers of the buds and the center of the flower, and I have the blue, and it repeats the color in the leaves, and so that kind of gives you your triangle. Now I'm just using this little rag that came with my embossing. It didn't come with it, it was separate, but it cleans off the powder, and so it looks really cool. Looks a lot better in person. But thanks for sticking with me, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and head on over to my blog for the post. Have a great day.